Well, hello there. Today I'm going to discuss my favorite settings for two of my favorite little pocket cameras, a Lumix LX10 and a Sony a5100, one of the smallest APS-C interchangeable lens cameras in the world that can shoot XAVCS, which is my first setting for this camera. There are some earlier NEX cameras that are APS-C, but they only shoot AVC HD, which is a lower quality codec. XAVCS is a big jump in quality, and this is one of the first cameras that can do that. That is this small. This is one of the smallest APS-C lens cameras that you can get, that you can literally fit in your pocket, that has a E-mount that you can take any Sony lens on there. All right, so here's my settings. I like to shoot this thing in manual, or if you don't want to deal with manual, then Superior Auto actually works really well. I don't suggest to use aperture priority because it tends to overexpose and change the exposure all the time and gets lighter and darker at will. So Superior Auto doesn't seem to do it as much. So if you're in a crunch and you don't want to think about what you're doing, then Superior Auto is good. Otherwise, use manual. Like right now, it's in manual. And actually, I'm shooting with the 5100 right now. I've got two of them here and a third one. So obviously I like this camera, which is why I have three of them. All right, so here's my favorite settings. And most of this is for video. With pictures, you can do whatever you want. I mean, there's a million ways to take great pictures. Video is a little more pickier, so this is what this is about because most people are doing vlogs, and this is actually a really good camera for doing vlogs. It has a flip-up screen. You can get the blurry background. It's really small, fits in your... We already talked about all this. Anyway, so I like to have it in portrait mode instead of standard colors because, well, here, there's a face in there. So with portrait mode seems to work really well for face colors as a creative style. Most of my stuff I shoot is sunlight or daylight white balance LEDs or something like that. So it's always set in just sun. If you do manual white balance, then I suggest using a white card, not a gray card. I'm going to make a video about that. Gray cards are for exposure, not really for white balance. A white card is best for custom white balance. Again, I'll do a video about that. Okay, my DRO is on and it's set to auto. That's dynamic range optimizer. It's on automatic. My color space is sRGB. ISO, I try to keep it around 100. 200's okay too. That's not bad, but I like to keep it around 100. Face smoothing. All right, this is a big issue with some people on this camera. They don't like the filter effect where it looks filtered. So, because it smooths your face automatically. Now, some people think you cannot turn it off. You actually can. It's really good when it's on because it tracks you. The face track, when it has face tracking on, smile face recognition, it tracks you. So there's a square on your face and it follows you wherever you go. So it does really good with tracking you around. Even if you turn off the soft skin effect, it still smooths your face, which is kind of like, huh? I don't get it. But there is a way to turn it off. You have to do a second step. So you turn off soft skin effect. Yeah, obviously you turn that off. But there's a second thing you have to do to turn off the face smoothing, and that is you go into smile face recognition. Most people think that's just for focusing, where it follows you around. And yes, that is what it does. But when you have smile face recognition on, it does automatically smooth your face because, well, you're shooting a face, and it assumes if you're tracking a face, you'd want it to look good too, so it's automatically smooths out your face. So you can turn that off. Turn off the soft skin effect and also the smile face recognition. Now, when you do that, you have to set your focus to either manual or you use the center focus spot for focusing. So, but you get more accurate face focusing and tracking if you have smile face recognition on. The only downside of that is it will filter your face. It will smooth your skin. The other option is have it in manual autofocus, manual focus, which I'm doing right now. I have it in manual focus, so you will go out of focus if you move your face. But if you don't want to think about it and you just want to walk all over the place and do whatever you want, have smile face recognition on. Just know that it will smooth your skin, which a lot of people like. They want that. I like to have my zebras on at 95. I'll do a whole nother video about that. So you can get perfect exposure when you don't know you're out in the sunlight or something like that. You can take off-camera flash pictures with the 5100, even though it doesn't have a hot shoe. I showed you how to do this in a previous video. You turn on the flash, you have it up like this, aiming at the ceiling, not at the, well, you can't have it after the person, but anyway, this little flash triggers the optical slave, the red plastic window, on almost any flash, even speed lights. I did that in the last video. You can see how I did that. So you can use a softbox, a professional lighting setup with this camera. So I showed you how to do that. My favorite lenses are the one that I'm filming with right now. It's using a Sigma 56 1.4. That is, I think, the best, sharpest lens for shooting portraits like I'm doing right now. It's one of my favorite ones. The other one is a Sigma 30mm 1.4. That gives you nice blurry backgrounds, but it's wider. And of course, the widest one is the 16mm Sigma 1.4. Also a great lens. All three of those, it's the Sigma trio. Those are the best that I think for this little camera. If the Sigma 16 is too big and heavy for you, there's the little Sony 16, but it's 2.8, but it's a lot smaller and a lot lighter. And if you want the smallest lens of all that goes on there, I like the little 20. That thing is great. It's not as sharp as the Sigmas, but it is good. So again, if you want to just use auto, Superior Auto is really good. If the colors are a little too vivid for you, then you can actually go into the menu and do vivid -2, and if it's a little too bright, then you can do bright -2, so you can darken, actually, compensate for that. You can do manual compensations even though it's an auto. Oh, and the other thing about this camera is a lot of people, if you're shooting video, these can overheat after a while. So the way you deal with that is you, first of all, flip up the screen so that it can radiate out the back a lot more. Second thing is, don't use a battery. Batteries heat up when you're using video, so this becomes really hot inside the camera, so don't use one of these. What should you use? Well, you use a dummy battery, obviously. Now, these are very popular, common batteries that have been around forever. There's different companies, different brands, different kinds, but it's really easy to get. So you have a cord that comes out, and this goes into a battery. There's different connectors, which then go into a little battery like this, or you can use a D-tap battery depending on the connector. This is a USB-C connector. This is a standard round connector, or you can get one that just plugs into a wall. You can use AC that adapts down to this. So this is a great way to keep these things from overheating. He's using a dummy battery and having the back flipped up. If it's still overheating after that, then you stick a little fan on the back. And I featured this in a recent video a few weeks ago. It's a little fan by Ulanzi that is, you charge it up with the USB, battery's connected inside here. You just stick it on the back with little suction cups, and that sucks the heat out of your camera also. So that's another way to do it. So again, this is a great camera to use. Most of the reasons that people have for not using them, there's a way around it. I love this little camera. It's so small, it's so portable, it's so just fun to use. I'm using it right now. I've got 3 of them, obviously, so I really love this camera. All right, let's move on to the LX10. Okay, now for the LX10. And I'm shooting with an LX10 right now also, so you get kind of an idea of what the look is while shooting with an LX10. All right, it's on auto right now. I just put it on movie mode auto. This is what it looks like, flip up screen. It's a 1-inch sensor. If you cannot afford an RX100 Sony Mark 7, this is half the price. It's also a 1-inch sensor. What this has is a 1.4 lens. I made a video about that. You can get a nice shallow depth of field with it if you put an ND filter on the front. Key with this one to get the good autofocus with your face in that, have it on AFC, continuous autofocus, and make sure the focus area is on face detect. Unless, of course, you're not moving around very much, in which case you can just keep the center of the screen as your area of focus. But I just keep it on face detect. That's just me. I like to have eye dynamic on auto. And sometimes if I really want to boost up the shadows, then I turn on highlight shadow, and I have the highlights -2 and the shadows +2. I don't always use that, but I usually keep eye dynamic on auto. I keep that on. Now, the one setting above all that I would recommend for the LX10 is a color setting, because skin tones on this are not as rich as with the Sony. Sometimes the skin tones tend to be just like a washed out yellow, with kind of lacking a little bit in the reds. So what I suggest, whatever setting you're using, go into the white balance. You can manually offset the white balance, and I suggest go left 1 and down 1 towards the red. So it's 1 down and 1 to the left. And that's if you're using perfect sunlight or a really well balanced LED light that is perfectly white balanced. But otherwise, if you're using LED lights that are not perfectly, the CRI isn't that high, then I suggest having it -2, or left 2 and down 2 towards the red. And that will help you a little bit there also. But generally, I'll leave it at down 1 and to the left 1. And those are the main things that I would suggest for the LX10. So there you go. 2 wonderful little pocket cameras that have been out for a while. And those are the best settings that I like to have for shooting video with pictures, you can just go crazy and do anything you want. There's a million different ways to take great pictures with both these cameras. Anyway, all right, little tips and tricks on Marcus Picks. That's what I'm about. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.